Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Maller-Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. Alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. They were developed as a way to help people kick a bad habit, but they helped a younger generation develop a new one.
These devices have been around in the U.S. market since about 2007. We've only started seeing these deaths really in the last few months.
Recent changes to Indiana law are making it easier for prosecutors to crack down on animal abusers.
Unfortunately, it is also not illegal to shoot your own animal.
You've walked past it more times than you can remember, and Indiana University just spent $2 million to rehab it. But how much do you really know about the Jordan? Coming up, we'll dive into the history of IU's scenic stream.
Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. The federal government is cracking down on vaping after it's been linked to at least 6 deaths, including most recently in Indiana. The Trump administration announced this week it's considering a ban on flavored nicotine formulas used in e-cigarettes. As Adam Pinsker reports, health experts say too many children are getting a hold of the products.
IU sophomore Sam Weiger says he's vaped for almost a year, but recently decided to quit after hearing about the spike in health problems e-cigarette users are having. But he says kicking the habit is easier said than done.
Honestly, yeah, it is. It's much harder than I thought.
Just in the past week, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say people have reported 450 possible cases of lung illness directly linked to e-cigarettes.
It tells me that there's something that's changed because these devices have been around in the U.S. market since about 2007. We've only started seeing these pulmonary injury cases or deaths really in the last few months.
Tobacco treatment specialist Debbie Buckles says while the nicotine content in cigarettes is standard across the board, the amount in e-cigarettes varies. Unless someone knows who prepared the liquids, they may not know how much nicotine they're taking in.
Lung issues and sadly the deaths that we've been hearing about are not related to nicotine vapor products. They are the result of black market THC products.
Sam Salima is CEO of the company that runs this e-cigarette shop in Bloomington, along with more than 100 other locations throughout the country. He says e-cigarette products are meant for people looking for an alternative to traditional cigarettes. They are not recommended for people who have never smoked before. Salima says all of his shops are equipped with a system to prevent clerks from selling e-liquids and e-cigarettes to anyone under the age of 18, but somehow they are falling into the hands of minors. The president of Indiana's Smoke-Free Alliance says state and local authorities need to do a better job of cracking down on teens who use these products.
Some of them are 3-day suspensions, some of them are a slap on the wrist, but their alcohol tolerance policies are zero tolerance policies. So if we really have problems with Juul in school or e-cigarettes in school, then why aren't we stepping up our policies in school?
President Trump is considering a ban on flavored e-cigarettes, and Senator Todd Young wants to raise the smoking age from 18 to 21. But Salima says more laws on the industry won't do much to solve the problem.
The sad reality is, in the last year and a half, we are noticing that some people are doing it for a little bit of a nicotine buzz. The sad reality is they're going for a very high concentration of nicotine products.
Weiger says he started vaping because he saw a lot of his peers doing the same. He wishes they knew a little bit more about e-cigarettes before they started using them.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of wanted it to make it stop people smoking, but it really got another generation hooked on something else other than cigarettes.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Adam Pinsker.
So Adam joins us now for a little bit more. Adam, this is a big story across the nation right now. What laws are in the books in Indiana regarding vaping right now?
Well, currently the state has a ban on any non-verified e-liquids that are manufactured here or brought into the state, sold in the state, of course. That has to be verified by the FDA. If not, it is illegal, but that doesn't really cover the black market. Those folks tend to do what they want to do and sell what they want to sell.
So the vaping industry is pushing back against the ban, saying that they're offering life-saving solutions. What do they mean by that?
Well, they say that their e-cigarettes are twice as effective at getting people to stop smoking as the pills or patches or gum that you've seen on TV and in stores for years. So they believe that what they're doing is going to help bring down smoking rates.
So is this legislation meant to reduce vaping across the board, or just kind of targeted toward minors?
Right. Well, Senator Young and Senator Brian Schatz from Hawaii proposed this bill. They got it through a committee earlier this year to raise the smoking and vaping age, the legal age to not only use but purchase, to 21. Now, that still needs to have a vote on the Senate floor. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, said he's supporting it, but until all 100 senators vote on it, then there's really not much that can be done.
So we have just about 30 seconds left. What happens next? What's now?
Well, I think that the vaping industry had, the gentleman I spoke with in that story was telling me that he thinks that all these new laws will do is benefit the people on the black market, not the law-abiding vape shop owners who he says follow the law already, because people that don't follow the law aren't going to pay attention to the new ones they put in place.
All right, so, Adam, we'll have to follow that story. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Now for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brozier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. The Environmental Protection Agency announced this week it has finalized its repeal of the Obama-era rule that would have expanded federal protections for smaller water bodies like streams and ponds. Trump's EPA says the Waters of the United States rule, or WOTUS, was federal overreach and created confusion for landowners. The agency says its replacement rule will give more power back to the states.
You should feel assured that the regulations in place in the state of Indiana provide for protections of waters of the state of Indiana.
Now, the Hoosier Environmental Council disagrees. It says the Obama rule was written specifically because state regulations were not protective enough. The 2015 rule never went into effect in Indiana. Like about half the states in the country, it was blocked by the courts. Piggott says the repeal of WOTUS will provide the certainty the businesses and residents in these states need. The number of uninsured people in Indiana followed a national trend and increased between 2017 and 2018. About 9,000 fewer Hoosiers have health insurance, according to data from the U.S. Census Bureau. Hoosiers who dropped off of Medicaid may have a hard time paying for health insurance on their own if their employer doesn't provide it. The increase could also be driven by changes to the Affordable Care Act, including the repeal of a mandate requiring everyone to have coverage. Nationally, the data also shows the number of uninsured children is on the rise. One of the 5 death row prisoners set to be executed at the U.S. Penitentiary in Terre Haute is requesting a judge halt his execution. Lesmond Mitchell's execution is set for December 11th. He was convicted of stabbing a 63-year-old grandmother to death and slitting her 9-year-old granddaughter's throat. His attorney filed a motion this week requesting a stay of execution. Court documents say Mitchell is a member of the Navajo Nation, and court proceedings should be reopened because he wasn't given a chance to look into potential racial bias that he thinks impacted his case. The federal government must file its response by September 27th. The initial phase of construction for Bloomington's first co-housing community is underway. The community will include several smaller homes that are centered around shared yards and buildings. Officials say they're working on the shared spaces in the center of the new community to accommodate the 5 homeowners already committed to living there.
We want this to be as comfortable a neighborhood as possible, as early as possible. And again, radiating out from that common space allows that to happen.
There will be 25 homes total when the project finishes in 2021, with 10 to 12 homes expected to be completed in the next 4 months. Some of the common facilities will include laundry, kitchens, and potentially guest rooms. Terre Haute leaders are hoping tiny homes will help community members struggling with homelessness. Joe Wren reports on how partnerships are making this project possible in West Central Indiana.
Tiny homes have a studio layout of about 240 square feet. They come in modern designs, colors, plenty of lighting, and some have secure bike compartments. The homes will face each other, forming a courtyard with picnic tables. Mental Health America of West Central Indiana is managing the village. Development Director Jace Alsop says the center will review the 45 applicants on file to fill the first 2 homes this spring.
So we will teach them life skills. If they need any treatment, we have our partnering agency, Hamilton Center, that they will have services all the time to.
Alsop says part of the project is paid through grants, but Indiana State University is paying for the cost of each tiny home. Students will build them in a warehouse, and then a crane will move the homes to a vacant lot near Chase and 14th Streets. Alsop says the homes will be permanent, but the residents will be temporary.
Seeing them get a home for the first time or an apartment is just incredible. They are so thankful. They are eager to learn, to be active, and to find a job.
Terre Haute officials have approved zoning for the project. Construction begins on the first 2 homes this spring, with plans to expand to 10. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Joe Wren.
The agency is looking for help with the project. Those interested can go to Mental Health America of West Central Indiana's website. A historic Indiana bridge is getting a new security system in response to issues with vandalism. In January, vandals spray painted the bridge in 6 places, marking both the interior and exterior with graffiti. Officials say the goal is to protect the bridge from future cases of vandalism and potential damage.
There will be a total of 6 cameras throughout the bridge, inside and out. Some of them will be looking out to the parking lot, some of them will be looking inside, just to see if anything is being done out here.
Nolan says the cameras will be routed to a wireless monitor that can be watched in real time. The whole system will be powered by Duke Energy. The Medora-covered bridge in Jackson County is one of the longest river-spanning bridges in the country, and it dates back to 1875. Friends of Medora Bridge will pay the entire cost of the project through fundraising events, but Nolan says the cost is unknown. The cameras are set to be installed next month. The Indiana Gaming Commission is accepting proposals for a new Vigo County casino through December 1st. A regional group is working to rally support from Vigo County voters for the effort. But Terre Haute Mayor Duke Bennett says he thinks competition just over the state line is working against a Vigo County casino.
There's not been a lot of interest, so we're kind of surprised that I think it's because of Illinois doing so many things. There is a ton of interest over there because they're doing multiple casinos. Here, what we want to make sure is we have a good community partner.
Bennett says a new casino along with the new downtown convention center could draw as many as 1.5 million more people to Terre Haute, spurring economic development. Yogi's, the Bloomington bar and restaurant, is reopening in another location. The restaurant closed in July 2017 after about 25 years in operation. Indiana University bought the property, and the restaurant couldn't find a new location. In a Facebook post, the Finney Hospitality Group says it purchased the rights to Yogi's and plans to reopen it this fall at the former Scotty's location at the corner of Walnut and 7th. The group is the same company that owns Social Cantina, The Tap, and Smokeworks. And the Ohio State Buckeyes will play the Indiana football team at Memorial Stadium this weekend. Ohio State is ranked 6th in the nation, and thousands of fans are pouring into town. IU coach Tom Allen says the Hoosiers are ready for the Buckeyes, even this early in the season.
You know, we've opened the season against Ohio State before, so we went from no games to game 1. So it is what it is. I will continue to say, I don't make the schedule. We just adapt to what we get and who we're supposed to play next. So the Buckeyes are coming to town.
The game may be the first large test for the new beer and wine vendors at the stadium. Last time Ohio State came to Bloomington in 2017, they beat the Hoosiers 49-21 in front of a packed house at Memorial Stadium. Lots of red and white in Bloomington
Yes.
tomorrow.
And we just hear Coach Allen saying starting quarterback Penix may not start, so we'll find out on Saturday. Thanks, Barbara. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. The Jordan River hides under much of downtown Bloomington, but parks officials want to make it a splash by making it as prominent in the new Switchyard Park as it is on campus. And prosecutors in Indiana say animal cruelty can be a sign of other criminal activity, and that's just one reason they want to crack down on animal abuse. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
The WTIU WFIU news team connects Indiana to the world. We bring you the top news of the day on radio, TV, and online. We round up the stories that have people talking each week and dig deep into the issues that affect your community the most. The WTIU WFIU news team is where you are and telling your story.
In a time of change, where can you find in-depth reporting and thoughtful analysis? Washington Week on PBS. Join moderator Robert Costa.
When I was at the Capitol this week, I encountered the same.
And a panel of award-winning journalists.
You're seeing a divided nation, and you're seeing
for insights and perspective.
Tonight there was a key development in the Senate.
You won't find anywhere else.
What a week.
Washington Week.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Indiana University spent about $2 million rehabbing the Jordan River this past year. In addition to putting in a new bridge, IU took care of erosion and invasive plants on the river's banks. In our latest installment of City Limits, reporter Mitch Legan took a deep dive into the history of IU's Jordan River.
Laurel Bender has been walking along the Jordan River for close to 30 years. After moving with her family to a house on North Park Avenue in 1990, the Benders began visiting the nearby stream frequently. Now, 29 years and many walks later, Bender wants to know the history of the Jordan.
I guess the main thing I was curious about is why our river, our little river, is routed underneath the city, starting at the edge, the eastern edge of the campus at Sample Gates.
Well, the first thing to know about the Jordan River is that it hasn't always been called the Jordan. In fact, it wasn't formally named that until 1994. Originally, back in the 1800s, it was called Spanker's Branch, but it's unclear why. Some accounts say it was named after someone, while others say it's because mothers would spank their children for playing in the stream. Spanker's Branch unofficially became the Jordan in the late 19th century, when former IU President David Starr Jordan left the university.
He left IU to become the first president of Stanford University. And the trustees wanted to honor him, and they named the Spanker's Branch after him.
Legend has it that they originally offered to name a building after Jordan, but he joked that the small stream on campus would be much more fitting.
So that was sort of an informal kind of thing, and there's no record in the Board of Trustees minutes and things like that. But eventually, people started calling it the Jordan River rather than Spanker's Branch. Sometime probably by the 1920s.
At the same time, Bloomington was seeing tremendous population growth. Records show that this was when the city began enclosing parts of the Jordan, presumably to help create more room for a rapidly expanding city. The portion on IU's campus was left untouched, though, for all to enjoy. And for a long time, it was best to look and not touch. Since the Jordan is such a small, slow-flowing stream, some bacteria and other microorganisms have thrived. Excessively high levels of coliform were reported in the Jordan in 1969.
I know back during the first Earth Day in 1970, there was these tours to sort of show the Jordan River as this polluted stream.
There's also another reason it's best to stay out of the water. See, back in 1993, an IU student was actually playing in the river after a heavy rainfall. He ended up getting sucked into this storm drain right here, which travels underneath the city. He took a ride for about 3/4 of a mile before popping up on the corner of First and Walnut, where he was rescued by authorities.
When we looked at the walls and things like that, there was all kinds of steel bars and rebar and other kinds of obstructions, and sometimes the actual circumference of the tunnel was not that big, and so This guy was really lucky that he did not get hung up.
When the river reemerges at the corner of First and Walnut, it becomes Clear Creek and passes through the developing Switchyard Park. Bender also wanted to know the plans for the river when it gets to the new city park.
I've been down there and I see that they're doing a lot of digging and putting in new pipes and things, and I wonder if there's going to be a rerouting somewhat of the river there.
Dave Williams, who is overseeing the development of the park, says the stream at that point will be opened up and become more of a focal point than an underground afterthought.
We wanted to make it a public feature, an environmental feature, so we're basically bringing Clear Creek back to life through the center of the park. We have a very large wetland basin that we're creating that will daylight Clear Creek instead of being in a culvert under the property.
Williams added that if things go according to plan, part of the park will be open to the public this November. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Mitch Legan.
The details of animal abuse and neglect cases are often grim. Pets deprived of food and water, small cages covered in feces, dogs forced to fight each other to the death. But some of those cases never saw a courtroom because of how Indiana defines abuse and neglect. As Barbara Brozier reports, that's starting to change as the result of new laws that took effect earlier this year.
The Morgan County Humane Society is bursting at the seams with adoptable animals. But it isn't all happy reunions and sending animals to loving homes for the staff that works here. The nonprofit also serves as animal control for the county, and the cases can be hard to stomach.
Shooting is frequent of owned animals, and unfortunately, it is also not illegal to shoot your own animal.
The Animal Legal Defense Fund ranks Indiana in the top 10 nationally for its animal protection laws, but advocates say there's still a long way to go.
Animals have been typically in our state and nationally considered property. And so it is very difficult when you're dealing with a living being to explain to the public that your animal really doesn't have any more rights than your handbag.
That can be a real challenge when it comes to filing criminal charges for animal abuse and neglect. In some situations, prosecutors found they didn't have a case because the horrific situations they saw didn't match the state's legal definitions.
So we had cases where we had large numbers of animals confined to a very small area, or animals that were being kept in uninhabitable conditions, and the neglect statute did not cover those situations.
This Tippecanoe County Animal Advisory Board pushed lawmakers to make changes to the definitions of animal cruelty, neglect, and torture. That means they will apply to more cases.
The law beginning in July of 2019 added 2 sections as part of torture, including electrocution or intentionally freezing or heating an animal to death.
Another change that took effect in July means someone convicted of animal abuse cannot own, harbor, or train an animal as a condition of parole. Before, the court could decide whether to apply the ban.
We had multiple cases where we had animals that were killed, and we could not get a ban from having that defendant who was convicted from going back out and buying another cat or dog.
Prosecutors and law enforcement say the ban is important, not just for the safety of animals, but also people. They say in many cases, animal abuse can be a warning sign for other criminal activity.
Statistics show from our prosecutors that, if you're going to harbor an animal again, not only will you abuse it, but you also have tendencies and statistics that show that you probably got abuse within the house too.
That's illustrated in a Lafayette case from last year. Police went to this house after someone complained about possible dead animals. Court documents say the officer found a large number of rabbits inside, with animal feces and trash throughout some areas of the home. Investigators also discovered something else.
And when the animal control officer went in there due to the training from the Animal Advisory Board, they saw in the bathroom ceiling a hidden camera. They backed out, got a search warrant with law enforcement. Lafayette police went in there, recovered, and that person was convicted of child exploitation, child pornography, and a criminal animal abuse.
A judge sentenced Anthony Leavell to 10 years in prison for the crimes. Advocates hope this year's changes will make it easier to prevent people like that from owning and harming more animals. And they plan to keep taking their fight for stronger animal protections to the State House.
We're definitely moving in the right direction. I think we have a lot of absolutely incredible momentum.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Barbara Brozier.
And the media school at Indiana University dedicated the new Michael I. Arnold Center for Investigative Journalism Tuesday in Franklin Hall. According to the school's dean, James Shanahan, the center will have complete editorial independence and be staffed by student reporters.
4 or 5 graduate students, they'll be doing independent investigations for the center as part of their graduate curriculum, but also just producing independent journalism.
Michael Arnold graduated from IU in 1967 with a journalism degree. He helped fund the center with a $6 million gift. The center's work will be available to news outlets across the country at no cost. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Desk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. Alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.